Okay, today we're going to start with lesson 1-3. We're going to discuss distance and midpoints. And there's quite a bit of math involved in the lesson today. So you'll want to pause frequently and work the problems and make sure you're understanding. You might need to replay a time or two to make sure that you're understanding what we're discussing. Okay, so previously you've graphed points on the coordinate plane. You've got that down pat. Now we're going to find the distance between 2 points, and we're going to find the midpoint of a segment. We've got some new vocabulary today. We've got distance, irrational number, the midpoint, and a segment bisector. So let's look at the distance formula on the number line. The key concept is the distance between 2 points is the absolute value of the difference between their coordinates. So in other words, we take this coordinate and we're going to find the distance or subtract the distance between them, and that's going to be how far one endpoint is from the other. The coordinates of the points can be used to find this length. So we're using the number line. We've got Q and R. Notice that Q is at -6 and R is at -3. So we're going to find the absolute value of the difference between -6 and -3, which is the absolute value of -3. In other words, there's just 3 places in between these two numbers. So our answer is 3. So check your progress. We've got a number line here, A and X. So pause the video for a moment and work the problem. Did you get 8? If you did, very good. We're finding the difference between the 5 and the 3. There's 8 places here on this number line. Good job. Okay, you will want to put this in your notes, the distance formula. It's on the coordinate plane, and this is very important. Now, when you're putting it in your notes, don't put it in as PQ. Put a big capital D for distance. So distance is equal to the square root of, and then underneath is the quantity x sub 2 minus x sub 1 squared, plus the quantity of y sub 2 minus y sub 1 squared. Now when you're calculating this, it doesn't matter which point you choose to be x sub 1, y sub 1, and x2, y2. This could be the 1 and this could be the 2. It doesn't matter. You're going to end up with the same answer. So all we have to do when we're working a distance problem is simply substitute our values into our equation. Now what I like to do when I'm working this is I take the points and I would put a little x1, y1 here, and a little x2, y2 on this one, so that just makes it easier. Once you've got those labeled, all you have to do is substitute into the formula. So we're naming this one as 0.2. So we have 3 minus -4, and we square that, plus -1 minus 1, and we'll square that. So we end up with this minus makes that a plus, 7 squared, plus -2 squared. We simplify, and so the distance between E and F is the square root of 53. Now you can plug that into your calculator and find out that the square root of 53 is approximately 7.28. I'll accept either answer, or if you want, you can give me both. The answer is square root of 53, and then you can say or 7.28. I'll accept both answers. You can check the ordered pairs by using the Pythagorean theorem, because we know that a squared, which is ED, plus b squared, which would be DF, is equal to c squared, which is EF. So we're going to show you how you might do that. We know that ED is 2 units, DF is 7 units. So 2 squared plus 7 squared gives us 53. So we know EF squared is equal to 53. Take the square root of both sides, and there we go. Our answer checks. Good job. Now is a chance for you to check your progress. I want you to pause the video for a moment and then substitute into the distance formula, and let's see if you get the right answer. Awesome. Square root of 20. So when we substitute in, I got 1 minus negative 3 squared plus 2 minus 4 squared. When I did the math, I ended up with the square root of 16 plus 4. Don't take the square root of 16 and then the square root of 4 and try to add them together. This is 16 plus 4. We have to keep that quantity together. So you might have made that little boo-boo. You can go back and replay that if you missed so that you can see exactly how I substituted in my numbers. Okay, the next thing we're going to talk about is midpoint. So earlier the distance, we were finding the distance between 2 points. Now we're going to find out where the center, where the midpoint is on that line. The midpoint is simply the mean or the average of the 2 points. So that's why our formula for midpoint, and I usually write that with a capital M, is equal to x sub 1 plus x sub 2 divided by 2, because when we're finding the mean or the average, we're dividing by 2. So here we're doing some decorating, and I want you to pause for a moment and read this problem. Okay, do you notice something about the problem? It's 2.5 feet away from the wall, and the couch is 90 inches wide. So here we're talking about 2 different units of measurement. So we need to make them read the same. Now, if we make 2.5 feet into inches, we're working with big numbers. How about we change 90 inches to feet? So how many inches are in a foot? Very good. You get 12. So you need to divide this one by 12. So this couch is actually 7.5 feet wide, plus we have the 2.5 feet away from the wall. Okay, very good. We're going to use the midpoint formula. So we have the 2.5 feet is our starting point. That's one endpoint. And then 10 feet would be our second endpoint. We're going to divide it by 2 because we're trying to find out halfway in between those two. When we simplify, we get 6.25. So the midpoint of the couch back is 6.25 feet from the wall. Okay, time for a check your progress. I want you to pause the video for a moment, read the problem, and see what you come up with. Let's see if you get the same answer I do. Okay, do you notice something about this problem? Here again, we're talking miles and feet. So what did you do to fix that? Do you know how many feet are in a mile? All right, there's 5,280 feet in a mile. So we'd have to divide that by this 4 in order to find out how many feet. Let's see, how many feet from the finish line? So we're going to take 5,280 and divide it by 4. And I got 1,320 feet. Then I divide that by 2 because I want halfway. So I got 660 feet. Did you get that for a midpoint? Excellent. Okay, you're doing so well. Let's just try something else with that. Now we're going to find midpoint on the coordinate plane. So we're being given 2 points, and we need to find the point that is halfway between the 2 points that were given. Okay, that's mainly what this is telling us. So this is representing the x value of that midpoint, and that's the y value of the midpoint. So we're to find the coordinates of M, or the midpoint, of segment GH. And we're given this value for G. The endpoint is 8, -6. And the coordinate for H is -14, 12. So in this case, we're going to let G be 0.1 and H be 0.2. And as again, it doesn't matter which one you choose for 1 and 2. Those are interchangeable. You'll get the same answer. We'll substitute it into this midpoint formula. So we get 8 plus the negative 14 divided by 2 for our x value, and negative 6 plus 12 divided by 2 for our y value. Now I want you to pause for just a moment and study these so that you make sure you're understanding where we're getting those numbers. Then you can restart the video as we continue. All right, now we just simply, we're going to simplify. 8 plus negative 14 is negative 6 divided by 2. Negative 6 plus 12 is a positive 6 divided by 2. So the coordinates of our midpoint are negative 3 and 3. Very good. Time for you to check your progress. So pause the video and work the problem, then come back to check on your answer. Did you get negative 5, negative 3? If you did, that's awesome. If you had a little trouble, I let x be 0.1 and y be 0.2. So when I substituted into the formula for my x coordinate, I had negative 2 plus negative 8 divided by 2 for my x. And then for my y, I had 3 plus negative 9 divided by 2. So I ended up with negative 10 over 2. And negative 6 over 2, and when I did my division, I ended up with negative 5, negative 3. Okay, so if you missed that, go back and try to substitute in what I mentioned and see if you can get the right answer. Okay, now let's shake this up just a little bit. We're going to find the coordinates of an endpoint. In other words, okay, it says find the coordinates of D if E is the midpoint. So they're giving us an endpoint, I'm sorry, the midpoint, and one of the endpoints. Now we have to go back in and try to figure out what the other endpoint is. So this is a little trickier. So if we let D be 0.1 and F be 0.2 in this midpoint formula, see how we're missing 0.1? We're trying to find out what 0.1 is. But we know what E is. This is the x value. This one, 4, is the y value. So we're going to do two equations, one so that we can find out what the x value is, and one so that we can find out what this y value is. So since the midpoint x value is negative 6, I'm going to put it over here. So instead of saying m is equal to something, I know that negative 6 is equal, and we're trying to find the 0.1 for x. So that's why x sub 1 is holding our spot, plus negative 5, that's one of the endpoints, divided by 2. Then to find our y value, we know that the midpoint y value is 4, and that's equal to whatever 0.1 is we're trying to find, plus a negative 3 divided by 2. So now all we have to do is simplify. But the thing is, here we've got some fractions, and so we've worked with fractions before and we're just not very happy with that. So let's multiply both these sides by 2. Let's get rid of that dividing by 2 thing. Okay, so if we multiply both sides by 2, it eliminates the 2 in the denominator. Negative 6 times 2 is negative 12. And that will equal the x 0.1 value minus 5. We add 5 to both sides. So the x value for our endpoint is negative 7. Okay, we found the x. Now let's go back in and let's find out what y is. The first thing we do, multiply both sides by 2. Get rid of that in the denominator. 8 is equal to y sub 1 minus 3. Add 3 to both sides. So our coordinates for our endpoint are negative 7 and 11. That wasn't too hard. You just had to stop and think, are they giving me two endpoints and I'm finding the midpoint? Or are they giving me a midpoint and an endpoint? And I have to go halfway through. So just stop and ask yourself a few questions. Okay, check your progress. Let's read this. Find the coordinates of R if N, which is 8, negative 3, is the midpoint of segment RS, and S has the coordinates of negative 1, 5. So here we're being given a midpoint and an endpoint, and we're asked to find this other endpoint. So pause the video and substitute into the formula, then come back and check on your answer. Okay, 17, negative 11 is what I came up with. So when I substituted in for my x value, I went 8 is equal to x sub 1 plus a negative 1 divided by 2. And then for my other equation, negative 3 is equal to y sub 1 plus 5 divided by 2. So when I multiplied both sides by 2, I ended up, for my x value, 16 is equal to x sub 1 minus 1. Added 1 to both sides, so then I ended up with 17. For my y value, once I multiplied both sides by 2, I ended up with negative 6 is equal to y sub 1 plus 5. So then y is equal to negative 11 because I subtracted 5 from both sides. Okay, very good. You can go back and replay that if you need to double check your work. Now for our final example, use algebra to find measures. They want us to find the measure of PR if Q is the midpoint. Now, by definition, if it's midpoint, it's halfway between, right? So 6 minus 3x is half of 14x plus 2. Do you agree with me? Okay, so we can rewrite that to say that QR is half of PR because that midpoint is half of the whole thing. Okay, so now we're going to use this equation. We're going to substitute in the values. We were told that QR is 6 minus 3x and that PR was 14x plus 2. We're going to use the distributive property. So half of 14x is 7x and half of 2 is 1. Now just solve for x. We're going to subtract 1 from both sides, add 3x to each side, and then divide both sides by 10. So, but they're asking us to find out what PR is, so we're going to substitute a half in for x. So instead of x, we're going to put a 1/2. So we've got 7 plus 2, or 9. So we know that the length of that entire segment is 9. So don't stop when you just solve for x. We have to go back in and place it in for whatever measure they're wanting us to find. You can go back and check your answer. So 1/2 of 9 is 9 over 2. The original measure says 6 minus 3x. Okay, if x is 1/2, 6 minus 3/2 gives us 9/2. So yes, that checks out as well. Okay, our final problem. Check your progress. So pause the video and work the problem and come back and we'll check to see how you did. Did you come up with 10? If you didn't, you might have stopped too soon and just found out that A is equal to 3. But that's not what they're asking. What is the measure of AC? So if I set 2A minus 1 is equal to 1/2 of 3A plus 1, use the distributive property, and I'll find out that A is equal to 3. Well, when I go back and substitute in, 3 times 3 plus 1 is going to give me 10. So excellent job. You are now ready to begin the practice problem solving and the check for understanding.